Today's movie is Until Dawn. Before I get into the review, spoiler warning. For a little background, this movie is based on a video game from 2015 of the same name. The game's premise is that a group of teenagers make an annual skiing trip to a lodge deep in the mountains. The year before the game's story takes place, two members of the group, the sisters of a third member named Josh, went missing and are presumed dead after a prank gone wrong ended in them falling off a cliff. When the group, minus the aforementioned two, of course, return to the lodge the next year for their annual ski trip, they're stalked by a masked killer in the vein of a classic slasher villain. Now, spoilers for the game, the killer is just Josh in a costume, pulling a prank on his friends as a form of revenge for the prank they pulled on his sisters the year before. It's soon revealed that the real danger on the mountain comes from a Wendigo, a fearsome supernatural creature that, as a side note, might just really exist in real life, that the Algonquins believed a human would transform into after engaging in an act of cannibalism. It's revealed that after Josh's sisters went missing, not only did they survive, but one of them was forced to eat the other to stay alive, transforming into a monstrous Wendigo in the process. The game's draw was its butterfly system. Throughout the course of a playthrough, the player would have to make decisions that would impact how the story plays out. These choices were far from insignificant, to the point of the game having a whopping 246 different potential endings, depending on what choices the player makes throughout the story. Now, when details first started coming out about this movie, it was revealed that the film's plot would differ from the game's plot pretty much completely, to the point of some people saying that it was an adaptation in name only, seeking to capitalize on the game's popularity. It was quickly clarified that the movie wasn't trying to adapt the story of the game to the big screen, but rather trying to tell a story set in the same universe as the game. I think that going in this direction was ultimately the right decision for the movie. The draw of the game was the butterfly effect feature, which wouldn't translate to a theatrically released film, and a plot twist can only be used once. The Wendigo reveal was a huge shock to people playing the game 10 years ago. This time around, they featured the Wendigos in the trailers to alleviate fears that the movie would deviate too heavily from the game. Personally, I also don't think the game's story is strong enough on its own without the interactive element you would get from playing a video game, as opposed to watching a movie, to carry a movie. Due to the movie being a different story than the game, it should be judged on its own merits rather than being judged as an attempted adaptation, since that obviously wasn't what the film was trying to do, and judging it as an adaptation would obviously be very unfair towards the film. The movie opens with a woman being killed as a cold open before cutting to the group of friends that'll be our protagonists. 5 individuals named Max, Nina, Megan, Abel, and Clover. The literal first scene of the movie after the opening is where its cracks start to show. Obviously off to a very strong start here. The conversation where they reveal that Clover's sister, Melanie, who we later learn is the woman in the cold open, has been missing for a year, and Melanie and Clover's mom died prior to that, is some of the most parody-level exposition I've ever seen in a movie. This is the kind of stuff they drill out of you during your first screenwriting 101 class. Now, don't get me wrong. I love slasher movies, so I don't expect Shakespeare when it comes to their dialogue. But this one was really egregious. After speaking with the local store owner, Clover learns that Melanie went missing in a nearby area with a history of disappearances, and the group sets out to look for her. They come across an abandoned house, trespass, as people tend to do in horror movies, and soon realize that something is not right when they find a guest book with Melanie's name, among others, written in it 13 times, and a wall covered in missing persons posters. Hey, I think everyone's allowed to have a hobby. They soon notice that the hourglass on the wall has been flipped and is now counting down. Soon a killer breaks in. He's not named in the movie, but he's called the Psycho, and he's dressed in a costume reminiscent of Josh's from the game. He kills 2 of them, the rest hide, try to fight back, fail, and get killed. Then the night resets, and the group quickly realizes they're stuck in a somewhat Groundhog Day-style loop, and they have to survive until dawn, when the hourglass finishes pouring its sand down in order to leave. Not only that, but the dangers they face each night change, meaning that they can't adapt as easily. Soon enough, there's a witch, a giant, Wendigos, and a nod to the game, you name it. They realize that each signature in the guest book represents a night, and that no name is in the guest book more than 13 times, meaning that they only get 13 chances to escape. You get a bit of a hope spot where the group is all hiding in the bathroom with every door barricaded to a pretty comedic extent. It looks like they might actually survive the night, but unfortunately, they drink some water from the sink, which causes them to explode. The store owner that Clover spoke to earlier shows up, revealing that he's actually a villain that's somehow involved with all of this. The character's name is Dr. Hill, and he is in the video game, but even though he's technically the same character, the Dr. Hill in the game and the Dr. Hill in the movie have just about nothing in common, besides a name and an appearance. As the characters die and come back, they slowly start to realize their bodies change each time they die. They learn from Dr. Hill that they're turning into Wendigos, just like everyone else that fell into this time loop trap and died 13 times. This aspect of the film really feels like it was just included in order to tie the movie into the game. It doesn't really add anything beyond Clover seeing her sister again now that she's a Wendigo. By night 13, they've had enough. Dr. Hill throws everything at them, Clover goes and confronts Dr. Hill, and her friends confront the other horrors, killing the psycho with a sledgehammer shot to the head. Dr. Hill says that the horrors are a manifestation of Clover's psyche, but then he also says that everyone gets the same horrors anyway, rendering that plot point literally completely meaningless. It's almost as if the writers tried to crib from what they call elevated horror without committing to the idea or understanding what made those other movies work in the first place. Clover uses a leak in the roof to get some of the human combustion water into Dr. Hill's coffee that he inexplicably drinks at night. He drinks it and explodes. The final night ends with every member of the group surviving. A happy ending for everyone, especially the audience, because the movie is finally over. Now, one of the biggest issues that I had with this movie is that it really felt like the studio had a fairly generic, unrelated horror movie script that they decided to slightly alter and title Until Dawn. This type of thing has happened before in the horror genre and has given us critically acclaimed classics like American Psycho 2 and the direct-to-DVD Hellraiser films. Many of the elements that tie the movie into the game, such as the inclusion of the Dr. Hill character and the main characters turning into Wendigos, really feel tacked on last minute. The whole idea of Wendigo psychosis would likely feel like a completely random inclusion if you weren't already familiar with the game before watching the film. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said earlier, I think that just trying to adapt the game's story to the big screen would not have been a good idea, but I think that the movie we ended up getting is unable to decide what it wants to be. It's not enough like the game to satisfy fans of Until Dawn, but it doesn't stand enough on its own to satisfy non-fans. Frankly, I'm not entirely sure why they chose to title this movie Until Dawn. The game was a hit, and certainly has a fan base, but I wouldn't say that it's in the same league as something like Star Wars or the MCU, where the brand name will be a big box office draw. The movie Happy Death Day was an original concept film that had a similar plot of someone having to escape a Groundhog Day-style loop by evading a killer, and that was a massive box office success, proving that the premise doesn't need to be tied to a pre-existing franchise in order to succeed. I'm not someone that thinks every how and why needs to be explained in a horror movie, but there are a lot of parts of the film that just don't even make sense, namely Dr. Hill. Even outside of his connection to the character, whether he's just an ordinary human or a supernatural entity is never explained or even explored in the movie. Whether he created the house or has just been studying the house and found a way to weaponize it, also never explained in the movie. You honestly could have just cut him from the story entirely without losing anything, leaving the reasoning behind the time loop house more mysterious and potentially frightening in nature. Now, this isn't to say that the movie was all terrible. There were a few parts that I liked. I thought the first night with them trying to survive the psycho worked well, although my love of slasher movies might make me a bit biased. The scene had a few subtle homages to the original Halloween, and having the main characters actually fight back, albeit unsuccessfully, against the killer during their first encounter, puts them a few steps above most slasher movie protagonists. The psycho, being seemingly completely invincible and impervious to all damage, also did a good job of creating a sense of hopelessness. A lot of the film's visuals were completely awesome. The shot of the giant from the trailer is a personal favorite, but the awesome visuals are actually part of what is probably my biggest problem with this film. The film always feels like it's about to become something where at least the spectacle will entertain you, but it never comes. The giant, he's on screen for a few seconds at most. When the final night comes, they make it seem like it's going to be a cabin in the woods style ending with loads of stock horror movie villains and homages. Instead, we just get more of the psycho and a bunch of Wendigos. For reasons that are never explained, by the final night, they've lost track of how many nights they've been there, and they've forgotten what's happened the previous nights. One member of the group was recording each night on a cell phone. They watched some brief videos of the unshown nights, giving us some great visuals that, unfortunately, just amount to yet another tease of a better movie that we didn't get, which is why Until Dawn gets 2 Wendigo tracks out of 5.